Hello, this is your Jolly Comet-Man here, and 'tis the season of Christmas and Winters. And today's video will act as such. The drawing and my narrated tale will be my own take on a Christmas tale. How many times have I said tale? Anyway, without further delay, this is my original story, a Winter's Tale, which I think I'll be continuing this story like once a year on Christmas maybe. Anyway, without further delay, let's jump right in. Peak of the winter season. Story begins at the town of Feltwind of the Everscore regions, a seaside snow town connecting the inland to the sea. A rather poor town, to its side being the old city ruins of the before times of long ago. In Feltwind, if you aren't a part of the industrial higher-ups, you're probably a part of the lower communities and probably scrapped to get by. There was a fragile sense of community in this town. Old Nicky, as locals and friends knew him, a grizzled and mysterious past-having man, often tried to keep the sense of community around, helping build shelters. But mostly of all, he helped out with the children at the town orphanage, often traveling into the ruined, forgotten cities. A risky journey, often scavenging and scrapping for supplies in the ruined cities, bringing blankets and old canned food for the children when there wasn't enough to go around. Many were amazed at how he manages to go out in the harsh winters. It's almost as if he doesn't feel the snow and cold. But that was just one of the bizarre things about him. Often the kids talked about how they often see him seeming like he's talking to the reindeer in the forest. Dolly, a 17-year-old girl who's lived at the orphanage her whole life. Like Nick, she often wanted to help her community, but she was a loner. She didn't come around the orphanage much. Like Nick though, she often came around bringing supplies for the younger kids that she borrowed from the higher classes. Her old ragtag group of friends often told her about how much they missed her, but like she would say, she rides alone now. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the ruined cities, old Nicky was doing his seasonal scavenge, and it was his lucky day. He had found an old, seemingly unused emergency bunker with supplies in it, canned and non-perishable foods, coats, blankets, and old candy. He was glad that this would bring a smile on the kids' faces this season. Loaded the menu of the supplies into the sled trays he was dragging. Although something was off this winter, the weather was not what it usually was. The winds seemed harsher and inconsistent. As he treaded his way back to the town, the winds got stronger, thicker. He felt the snow shifting beneath his feet. Something wasn't right here. Suddenly, he was stuck. His feet were stuck in the snow. He couldn't move. In the unclear windiness, figures began rising from the snow. They were the snow, taking shape like people. Ominously, fastly began moving towards him with malicious intent. Battered up, and with one strong hit from his fist, the snowman burst into pieces. While stuck, attempting to beat them off, one jumped on his back. As they began herding him, seemed done for. But all was not lost. A figure jumped from the shadows. It was a woman, holding a huge battle axe, who began to lay in and fight off the snow creatures, destroying them. "Gotten slow, Nicholas," the grizzled warrior woman remarked with a smirk. She was an old friend from Nicky's past, Mary. He wanted to ask what she was doing here, but they clearly needed to find shelter first. Luckily, they had just about entering the town. They would take shelter at Nicky's mechanic garage, where there was an unexpected visitor. Dolly, her and Nicky being friends, had also come here to take shelter and refuge in this unexpected extreme winter. Mary had continued battling the winter and its beasts back in the North Pole, but for some reason it was moving in this way this year, and she was going to need Nicholas's help if she was gonna fight it. Maybe like old times. "No," Nick said. "I left that behind. I found different ways to help people." Dolly was curious what all this was, what their past was. what these winter beasts are. Just then, hordes of snowmen began banging outside, attempting and clawing to attempt to get in. "I don't think you're gonna have a choice, Nicholas," said Mary. Charlie was scared, then frustrated, and demanded they tell her what's going on. The three were rushing to find a way out. Nicholas would explain to Dolly his past. Him and Mary used to battle the snow beast in the North Pole and fight off the winter's rime, a seasonal uprising of the snow beasts. And during this season would fight off what they called the winter's rime, where the snowmen grow strong and cold-bloodedly attack anyone that's not a snowman. Their winter-resisting abilities were the St. Claus warriors. Mary, with her array of snow-battling forged weaponry, needed to protect the people and civilians of the snow. But after years of battle after battle together, Nicholas got tired. He retired this direction in this little town, helping people in a different way. He and Mary haven't seen each other since. Dolly, seeing Mary's map of the wind's movements, noticed that the wind is coming into town directly from the direction the orphanage is in. They needed to go protect it and get those supplies to them. They would need them tonight more than ever. As the snow beast had managed to breach the shelter, Mary would battle the beasts with her axe, holding them off as Dolly and Nikki loaded the equipment onto his pickup truck and got it started. They began ramming and running down the snowmen, and Mary jumped onto the back right before they rammed through the doors, leaving the garage. The Rhymes Winter Nexus was heading into town from the direction of the orphanage they were headed to. Dolly felt like covering her ears as Mary and Nicholas argued over their next action, Mary wanting Nicholas to come with her to battle the Winter Nexus, and Nicholas wanting Mary to come with them to help them secure the orphan's safety. The three, almost blindly in this storm, drove off to the orphanage, fighting off all kinds of manner of snow beasts. Dolly almost going into shock at all these events, the three ineffectively working together and just barely surviving. The three would finally arrive at the orphanage, which they could barely see in all this wind and snow. Just as they arrived, the ground began to shake. Roots of vines began to large house-sized mass of snow accumulated. The roots went through it, almost acting as some kind of tentacles or arms to it. A huge mouth opened at its center, two infamous lights glowing above the mouth, almost as eyes. It's the Winter Nexus, Mary stated, its large vine-like arms smacking at the car, flipping it over. The three managed to get out, Dolly grabbing one of the bags, taking cover in the building. The colossal snow beast attacked at the building, smashing and destroying it, with them inside it. Multiple of the children got injured. The colossal snow monster summoned more snow, summoning smaller snowmen to attempt to get inside the building. There was the bus in the barn, which the kids and staff could use to get away, but the monsters needed to be held off. Seeing the hurt kids, this infuriated Mary. She wanted to tear those monsters apart. But no, instead, she said he had to protect them. She was gonna help them get to the barn. They were too much for him and Mary to handle, and they began overwhelming them. The kids were making it to the bus, so they had to hang in there. Dolly, seeing this, couldn't just stand by. She grabbed the other older kids, her ragtag group of friends, and opened the bag she carried. It was full of coats, green coats. They put them on, and each of the 5 kids took a weapon from Mary's bag of frost-battling weapons, began to lean into the monsters, attacking them, assisting Nikki and Mary. The colossal snow monster, using its roots and vines, began attacking the bus that the orphans were on. This enraged Nick. Snow monsters were once again overwhelming even the kids and Mary this time. He would walk through the wreckage, feel the wind in the air, His eyes began to glow, wind spinning around him, thunder raging in the clouds. He soared into the sky at super speed and began to attack the colossal titan with all his strength and might. His hits, full of rage, were actually hurting and attacking the beast. But the snow monsters were still overwhelming and attacking Dolly and her friends. He stared into the forest. "Ho, ho, ho!" he yelled, howled while trying to hold off the monster. It was quiet. Then an approaching trampling came. Reindeer ran out of the forest, attacking and ramming into all the beasts and snow monsters, giving Mary, Dolly, and the other kids the assist they needed. Nicholas, still raged, focused all his anger and might and power into beating the Omega monster into an oblivion. He jumped, nay, soared into the air, wind and lightning spinning around him. He hurtled down and slammed into the beast, causing a blinding explosion of wind and snow, leaving everyone else disoriented. The monster had been defeated. Nicholas walked out of the mist. As the sun rose on a new day, Dolly thought this was the end of it, but no. Nick still needed to find out why the winter went this way this year. Do you think this could be his doing? Mary suggested, no, it can't be. Who? Dolly asked. An old enemy of ours, one who's obsessed with punishing. Who are those who he deems guilty? We vanquished that enemy a long time ago. He didn't want to believe that it could be this old enemy of theirs, but nonetheless, Nick and Mary had to go to the north together to find out why this happened and continue to fight off the winter's waves. Dolly would promise that if anything would ever happen to their town here, her and her friends would be around to protect it, just like you two did. Nicholas said he would come to check on the town every once in a while, maybe once a year around the winter's holiday. Maybe bring gifts for the kids too, so they would await the winter's holiday from a visit from Nicholas and Mary, the St. Claus warriors, Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And this was my take on A Christmas Story. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I don't really have much more to say. Merry Christmas, and yeah, this is your Comet here, signing out. Bye bye. Man, I love the concept of warrior scent.